Hello and welcome to yet another episode of The Blue Rafflesia, a fiction written and narrated by Dr. Mrinmoy Mujumdar. The other episode of this story is available in my YouTube channel and also to my newsletter itel.substack.com. So let us begin episode number 34. The Blue Rafflesia, episode number 34. A tiger in the Andamans. The gate of the cell where Jayanta and his companions were imprisoned opened again. This time, 5 or 6 men armed with guns entered and ordered the prisoners to follow them. The captives were handcuffed and their legs chained before being forced out of their cell. After a long walk through the narrow channels of the cave, they were led into a chamber enclosed by a brick wall inside the same cave system. The place was old and damp, covered in algae and various kinds of ferns. However, the prisoners noticed that there were no reptiles or mammals that could pose any threat to them. Once inside the chamber, they heard a sound box crackle to life. A man's voice greeted the captives. Although unseen, Raj, Rahit and Gomej instantly recognized the voice. It was one of that they had heard before in another encounter under similar circumstances, but at a different location. We meet again, Raj, Rohit and Gomej. How are you? Professor Basu and Jayanta, welcome to my home on the island. I like to call it my stony outhouse, the voice said, followed by a mocking laughter. So you're the one behind all this, Raj shouted. After Shimlipal, this is our second meeting. But this time we didn't come looking for you. We are just here doing research. Yes, I know, the voice replied. And I want the results of that research. For years I have been investigating the uranium source indicated by the bloom of the Blue Rafflesia. When I learned that your team was heading to North Sentinel Island, I assumed you had already identified the source and that it was located here. Rohit interrupted. But you were searching for the Blue Rafflesia for its medicinal value, not for commercial exploitation. When did your interest shift to uranium? And how do you even know the flower indicates uranium deposits? That secret wasn't shared with anyone. How did you find out? Perhaps Mrs. Sunny Bhatia, our driver, betrayed us, Jayanta said, shaking his head. Do you know she is working for our enemy? What? Everyone except Jayanta shouted in disbelief. Jayanta, you're right, the voice responded. You're a clever boy, too clever to waste your time with that old fool, Professor Bhattacharya. Anyway, we don't just have moles in your team, but also within the Intelligence Bureau. Thanks to those loyal informants, I receive regular updates. Raj demanded. Fine, now tell us, why have you kidnapped us this time? What is your motive? I want the exact location where you found the blue Rafflesia. The boy snapped impatiently. Professor Basu shot back angrily. We haven't discovered the location yet. We are about to when your men attacked us and destroyed the only specimen. The explosions buried the site under debris and fallen vegetation caused by your own assault. Don't worry, Professor, the voice replied calmly. The area where you were searching is now under my men's control. They will continue their work, however, they found nothing so far. So I must ask you to return there and resume your search. This time, whatever you find belongs to me, not to Professor Bhattacharya. And once we find it, you will kill us all and take the uranium for yourself, Raj said bitterly. But the amount is huge. How do you plan to extract it without attracting the authorities' attention? You have entered in this island illegally, without informing the authority. The voice laughed coldly. You're right, Raj. I will kill you all. I never leave unreliable associates alive. After you finish your task, I will host a grand dinner in your honor and then bid you farewell forever. You think we're fools? Gomez retorted angrily. If you plan to kill us, why should we work for you? Because you don't have a choice, the voice hissed. Refuse and I will have you all executed right here. Meanwhile, as Raj and his team remained captive, a small fishing boat approached the shore of North Sentinel Island. Panda jumped into the shallow sharp. There was no jetty. When he tried to pay the promised fare, the boatmen were already rowing back to sea. Panda wasn't angry. He simply laughed. The sailors knew how dangerous the island was. At any moment, they could be struck down by an arrow or spear from the reclusive tribesmen who despised outsiders. Yet this time many intruders had landed, and strangely there was no sign of the islanders. Panda began moving cautiously toward the jungle. He was confident, after all, he was a trained police officer, skilled in handling hostile situations. Though he had never confronted the sentinels before, he believed they were far less dangerous than the terrorists. He had dealt with terrorists multiple times in his career. If he could handle them, he thought he could manage these tribesmen easily. Because they are at heart much more innocent than a terrorist. They carried bows and arrows, not bombs and AK-47s. But as Panda walked deeper, he suddenly heard a low growl, perhaps from a tiger. Impossible, he thought. No official or informal record had ever reported a tiger in these islands. Some parts of the Andaman and Nicobar may had leopards or bears, and crocodiles lurked along most of the coasts, but never a tiger. Then where from the earth this growl of a tiger can be heard in this reclusive Sentinelese island? Is this a hoax? Or it is really the growl of a tiger? And by hearing the growls, it is clear that the size of the tiger is not a smaller one.